September 3rd, Saturday, 1893. I heard it, and I heard it again, the chiming of the clock never ending in its ceaseless knocking upon my brain to stay awake. It was now 4 o'clock in the morning, and I hadn't gotten any sleep. You can imagine how unpleased I was. I couldn't stand it any longer, so I crawled from my bed and opened the door just a crack, if just to breathe. I heard a new sound, that of footsteps, it seemed. There were dozens, if not 100 of them, moving in sync with very sturdy clock-like rhythm. And then there were her steps, Miss Charlotte. I peered from over the staircase railing to see her sitting on some higher steps, clenching on the railing, as a flurry of girls had surrounded the room they were in, and the rooms around us, plenty of steps as well. All these girls were in white gowns with flowers in their hair, which was loose, if not completely down, and an absolute gorgeous mess. I didn't know any of these girls, nor had I recognized them as any of the maids I had met.
Some call them ghosts.
Charlotte had begun without me needing to say a word.
Some say memories, others say loved ones. Me? I say girls.
She popped up her head to look at me and make eye contact.
Cannot sleep? I understand all too well. How are we expected to be restful when so many who can never find peace even in the afterlife haunt these horrid halls?
I dared to ask, who are they remnants of? I mean, surely they did not just come here out of nowhere.
Forgive my bluntness and honesty, but people like you. Such thrilling news to know that this is where you will most likely die. Cold and empty, alone. My apologies, how insensitive I'm being. I was supposed to go somewhere else with this. That I will be there to keep you from that fate as much as I can. Sleeplessness must have this effect on me.
I can't go back to bed. Even when shrouded in death, or at least those who have passed, I couldn't bring myself to sleep again.
I understand, perfectly.
Charlotte began to walk down the stairs to meet me.
Nightmares?
I nodded as I added, the clock as well.
Ah, yes.
And the voices.
It all never ceases. I heard them all scream in life, and even as they're dead, I can still hear them.
She wrapped her arm around my shoulders as to escort me into another room.
I almost expect that one day, that when I look in a mirror, I shall look just like them. That's one way of finding out that your time was up. Or perhaps, just like my dreams and thoughts, even my spirit will wither away to nothingness.
I cherished her embrace. It was so lovely. She was so lovely. I longed for her to never stop holding me as I took a whiff of her scent that was attaching itself to my brain. Don't ever let go. We walked into the performance room and Charlotte made her way to the harpsichord, fiddling with a few keys. There were a few of the girls surrounding the harpsichord, two in particular. A young blonde girl about my age with a scar, and a red-haired woman who could be my mother, looked very familiar, but I'm sure I'd never met them. After several glances, I realized how closely they resembled Charlotte, and I don't mean as in the colouring of their features, but rather that I thought they could be mistaken the woman for her. And the blonde looked as though she could have been Charlotte's sister with very similar green eyes to the woman, and my friend's one green eye.
I wonder why he loves it so much.
She let out under her breath.
I wish I could go back to bed.
Suddenly, in sync with the clock's rhythm, all the girls looked at the doorway to the room. Charlotte and I found ourselves looking that way too after taking notice of them doing so. Then there was the sound of grunting and struggling from a woman. I heard slapping noises and shifting about as though there had been some sort of fight. I grasped onto Charlotte, who tensed under the pressure of the noises. She grabbed a hold of my hands too. We began to move closer to the doorway until we quietly crept into the hallway, noticing the room next to us was open, with a crack and the light shining from it. The sound of a man's laughter filling the air as I felt a violent shudder of disgust crawl up and down my spine. The two of us moved closer to the crack and peeked through, and my God, dear journal, I dare not describe even a fraction of what I had seen. The moment I had laid my eyes upon the content of the room, I shut them tight and pushed my face into Charlotte's bosom. She held me and tried to calm and quiet me as we slowly backed away. I supposed I hadn't expected anyone else to still be up at this hour. Charlotte glided us to the staircase as inaudibly as possible, but I had accidentally knocked something over in the darkness, drawing noise to our direction. She began to gently push me up the stairs as I clung tightly to her, following her lead.
What was that noise?
I heard a man ask. Then the familiar, distinct voice of the Count had replied, with a smile in his throat.
Perhaps a rat that is out of its cage. Maybe it needs to be hunted down and taught a lesson.
There were no words to describe the exact feeling that hit me at what the Count had said. All I can say is that my body went completely cold and I experienced a chill I had never before.
It's all right.
Charlotte whispered in my ear, still pulling me along.
Keep walking. We're almost there.
Then suddenly, the girls began to move things, causing more noises, but in the directions farther from us. We had finally reached the top of the stairs with my mistress's bedroom, being just in arm's reach when suddenly all the girls had vanished and I heard,
Charlotte?
coming from the bottom of the steps. I looked down to see the Count standing there, staring at us, so I jumped in place and hid behind Charlotte, tugging at her arm as an indication to run. But she stood there, as still as stone with a cold look on her face. Not as in she went cold like me, but as though she'd make you go cold like me. She pushed back on me as an indication to go to her room. So I scampered to the doorway without a word as I watched the two exchanged eye contact.
Go ahead.
Charlotte jeered.
Set up the trap, catch the rat, put it to sleep in a slumber it will never find.
Find the rat?
A voice called from the other room. Count then answered.
No, just the wind was all.
Charlotte slowly and calmly walked into her room, never halting her communication with her father until she was fully inside and closed the door. We spent the rest of the night holding each other.